Thank you for joining us for this on-demand webinar all about email marketing during a crisis, lessons and advice. I'm Sims Jenkins, the founder and CEO of Brightwave, and with me I have Jessica Ginberg, Senior Strategist at Brightwave. We're going to walk you through some really important things right now as it relates to this crisis that we're in. Right now is a very strange and uncertain time. There's no doubt about it. Everyone, whether on your professional or personal life, this is an extraordinary, difficult time for everyone. We certainly know that. And when you throw in everything that has to be done right now for your email marketing program, I think we can all say it is really hard right now. So take a deep breath, enjoy the next half an hour as much as possible. Hopefully this is a distraction and hopefully it's also helpful. We're really trying to provide some benefit to the broader community. We've had a lot of our clients and people in the industry ask what is appropriate right now for an email program in terms of what to send and what not to send. So this is really meant as our little PSA to the world right now to make sure you're doing email as effectively and as appropriately as possible. Email marketing continues to play a critical role in this ongoing crisis. Email has been around the block over the last 20 plus years, playing a really critical role during other crises. We certainly don't know how this one's going to play out, but email has been thriving during other uncertain and chaotic times, whether that's the 9/11, whether it's the Great Recession, SARS, and countless other tragedies and other situations where communication has to be made to your customers, to your stakeholders, and email has really been a critical part of making sure that brands can continue to effectively and appropriately message to those folks. So let's look at why we know that email is going to be really one of the most important communication vehicles over this next couple of months as this crisis unfolds. First of all, everyone has email. Everyone reads it daily. We know that email continues to be one of the first and foremost things that people are doing constantly throughout the day, whether it's for personal or professional reasons. Email is the most cost-effective and efficient way to reach a massive group of people. It has the ability to scale and broadcast your message to millions of people, or really segment and target based on who the people are and what the message is. Mobile has made email even more front and center. It's really made email the top internet consumption that people are doing on their phone. We know that SMS and push notifications will complement and continue to be a really important way that people consume media during this crisis. Now, this crisis is something that we've never seen before. It's fast moving. Every day seems like it's bringing lots of new news, lots of things that are scary, intimidating, and from a business standpoint, in some cases devastating. But email continues to be the best tool for providing those updates and really importantly, keeping your business moving. We know that so many businesses are going to just really struggle. And there's a lot of things that email can do to keep your business moving if it's done appropriately. And we certainly know that in good times and bad, email is really one of the most important and potent weapons that marketers have in their arsenal. It's the workhorse of digital marketing, drives revenue, builds relationships, and does so much in terms of really moving your business forward. So we know it works. Unfortunately, it's going to have to really work during a difficult time. So Jess and I are going to cover several different things here. And the way that we've approached this webinar is to give it 3 different buckets. We think that emails can be talked about in terms of communication, which is really that phase 1 that a lot of brands are doing related to how are they continuing business, updates on their people, hours, things of that nature. The next is going to be that critical phase where you're keeping your business going. How do you drive revenue? How do you make payroll? How can email help you accomplish those mission critical things for any businesses? And then the last thing is probably one of those sneaky things that we know a lot of people are going to have a hard time getting to in a timely fashion, but automated emails. Emails have just really moved from a manual standpoint to massive automation. And there's a lot of things that people are going to want to take a look at, and we'll dive into that. And then lastly, Jess and I will share some lessons and advice with all of this in mind. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jess.
Thanks, Sims. Yes, so we've been handling a lot of emails for clients and also monitoring over the emails that we get. So we just want to go through some of our best practices. The first one for communication to your customers is, make it human. This is an example that Lyft sent right at the beginning of the crisis. It's now obviously changed. I think that they've suspended their service, but caring for the community, they're using great tone here. They are showing clearly what Lyft is doing as a partner with them. They're showing what you can do. They're giving clear calls to action, and really kind of keeping everything concise, but also friendly. Another recommendation that we wanted to bring up is, you want to make sure you're following the recommendations from what everyone's doing with social distancing. So this is an example where the message is great on the right. However, the team on the left is not practicing social distancing. So it's just to say that as you're considering your message and you're looking through the images that you have, what might have been appropriate for your campaigns beforehand maybe need to be reevaluated in terms of, are people touching each other? Are people too close? Are they all indoors? Anything like that. So this message is great, but as a consumer, if you read it, you might think, oh, look at that hug, and get a little germophobic. That doesn't say that you can't have a little fun. This is another example that we loved. Firebox is a UK e-commerce brand, and they're very cheeky. And so this was a wonderful example of, here's what they're doing at Firebox. They're trying to keep everybody's orders happening. They're making sure that everyone knows that if they leave a package on your door, they're not trying to be antisocial or lazy. They're just trying to respect the distance. And so we thought this was a really great example of getting the message across, having some personality, but also making sure that you're being sensitive to just the lay of the land, as it were, right now. So you don't need to be too cute. There's not emojis here. There's not even really any imagery, but it definitely still has kind of that brand voice that I know we all work really hard to maintain. We also have noticed, kind of going on that semantics and tone, this was another example that someone in our marketing department received. It was for a company that has children's toys and clothing, and the subject was really all about, working from home with your minis. And, their message was on point. If you look through kind of the rest of the content in the email, they talk about working from home with your little one. They're showing a product shot with a child in some of their clothing that they sell, and a toy. The toys that they're showing are all interactive, so that as you're working, the child can be playing, and then also the DIY sensory play ideas. So not only are they working on the e-commerce and selling, they also are kind of giving some support and ideas for the parents that have now discovered themselves in a homeschool / work / caregiver situation.
And what I love about these, Jess, is they feel like they're really built by real humans with real humans in mind, as opposed to, somebody in sales saying, we need to sell more stuff today, let's send out a coupon. Or, a lot of the bad characters in email that just, send out things that have little value to you, or maybe don't have that human element that is so important right now. There's, this feels like it was really curated by a thoughtful group of people, and is probably really hits home with a lot of those recipients that are their core audience.
I totally agree. It's like saying they're thinking through what really, and that's how email should be approached in general, not, what are we trying to sell, but how can we create the relationship and build that communication. And, we did put an example of somebody who maybe didn't pay as much attention to the tone. This is an email that we got that the subject line was, oh no, and the pre-header was, don't panic, we've got you, which, it could have been, maybe it was, we're going to go for a walk outside and you can wear our leggings to be exercising and be healthy while we're all indoors practicing social distancing. But it was a message about low stock on some leggings, which is not as helpful in your inbox. I think the empathy piece here is missed. The other example that we have, and even the next example with some helpful hints. And this makes it so that you know, it's taking that empathy, it's taking that human look of what you would need right now, what you're thinking of. This email is a great example of, you know, how to make your own bubbles and coloring pages and things that parents or maybe even bored people are looking to do while they're, you know, practicing social distancing and being stuck indoors for longer periods of time. So as you're creating kind of your communications in the next couple of weeks, I think that it's really important to, you know, be helpful and also be cognizant that the people who are reading your emails are probably dealing with a lot more than they even thought they would have to be. And so just kind of keeping that in mind. You know, that said, we also want to talk about, you have to keep your business going right now. There's never going to be a time where people just shut down business and everyone's working, and we're trying to make sure that we're still hitting all of our goals. And that's the same for consumer revenue, driving email campaigns. I think the biggest piece that we really do need to think through is that, you know, your product, the people, what their product needs might have changed. So whereas you might have been thinking about sending a spring break message, this was an example that the company went through and did everything was outdoors. The hero that scrolled was about running shoes. And then everything here, even though we do have some examples of people outside, these two women are, you know, pretty far apart from one another. And then the dad and daughter, they'll probably be social distancing together anyways, and who has pictures of people, a lot of people playing basketball. But it is showing an example of, you know, a good e-commerce email that can probably drive some good revenue for a business, even if it wasn't exactly what they were planning on sending at that time. So a good kind of reaction. On the other hand, you can position things in a way that maybe isn't necessarily keeping the perspective at home in mind. So this is a great email about everything is in your house, being comfortable, kitchen time is family time. They have a picture of the barbecue. We would just remind everyone to be a little bit more mindful about your messaging. Your staycation starts here. I think that many of us would agree that this is not quite a staycation in the sense of the word. We are enjoying a lot of quality time with our family. We're enjoying time together, but I think that there's a lot of stress involved, and I don't know, Sims, I don't know if you would describe it as a staycation or not.
No, nor do I anticipate it to become one.
Right. Right. So the other thing too, we were thinking is how can you also be creative in how you position things? This is a really good opportunity to talk about being a community that is not the community in the way that we've thought of the word typically. So where you're not going out and giving your neighbor a hug or visiting a sick friend, there are still things you can do. And we got this great email that kind of gives some ideas about people coming together virtually. So the gift certificates for local restaurants, tickets for future community events. This is from an event host program. So a lot of theirs have to do with the going to the arts and performing, but the same idea can be taken here. You could send an email if you were an e-commerce gifting company. You could send an email talking about, you know, bringing joy to friends and family by sending them a present or a surprise that can be delivered. And then also, you know, giving links to the resources here, it's in the secondary of the email. So somebody is looking for communication and they're wanting some updates about how it's going to affect their community, but at the same time, they also need information. So they're putting it into the secondary here and doing a really good kind of like link for all of the relevant resources. So now you're not scrambling. Another thing that companies can do is think through how they can help solve people's problems. So this is another example from a glasses company where it's saying they've closed their doors, but they can still be committed to their customers with their phone line, with emails. They have a chat link. So it's just thinking through in this new kind of day and age and the new landscape of where we are, how you can still answer your customers' questions, be there for your customer, and really solve an issue that somebody has. So those are all broadcast campaigns. We also think it's important to talk through automated emails. These are the emails that they're famous for set it and forget it. They are wonderful. We love using them at Brightwave. They kind of help you target your audience really well, but they might need some adjustments and tweaks while you're here. This was a really good pop-up that happened when we logged into one of our email platforms that just saying, hey, marketers, be careful. You need to make sure, you might want to go back and make sure that nothing in your automated campaigns could be going against any of the things we talked about earlier. So tone, imagery, the availability of stores, if things are open, things like that. So when we're looking at the emails you need to look through, we suggest looking at your transactional emails. So that's everything from forgot password, order confirmations, you've updated an address, anything that these trigger very quickly and often without any sort of contact history written against it. So you can't even tell who got it. So definitely start there and look and see what you might need to update. Another series that most companies now have is a welcome series. So people might still be opting into your email program right now. I think it's a good idea to look through kind of what are those first messages you were giving to a customer and how do you need to maybe change that for a subscriber that opt-ins now? Is there are you doing something similar to Eventbrite where you're keeping a repository of updates on one link? It might be a good idea to add that to your welcome series so that people don't have to keep being emailed. They can bookmark a link and stay up to date with the most important news for your company. If you're talking about store hours or come visit us, these are language tweaks that are relatively easy to make. And then they can just speak more to kind of where we are now and any sort of future implications to social distancing. Post-purchase and bounce back emails. Some people use these. They're really great campaigns. We can talk about that another time. But if somebody's purchasing a vacation package and that might trigger a pre-arrival message, just make sure that you're not sending them in too soon of a fashion. You might want to turn off some of your pre-arrival campaigns in general if you're in the travel tourism industries. You just want to be sure that you're really paying attention to people and their vacation patterns or their purchase patterns and answering the questions they might now have versus what they did when you had first set up the programs. And we're not saying it's going to be tomorrow, but at some time you're going to have to turn campaigns back on. And it's probably a good idea to think through earlier rather than later a email that says, welcome back, we've missed you. Our stores are now open, and then going back to the automated campaigns, keeping a track of what you've changed, how you need to readjust and go back to old messaging, or how it becomes kind of a new normal message that's more sustainable for the long run.
And I just wanted to add, Jess, that this goes beyond automated emails, but anyone that's worked in email marketing, I think the one common thing that anyone can share is everyone has made a mistake if you've been in email. And certainly, the transactional emails and automated emails have their fair share of things that people often catch, that whether they're broken or something that hasn't been updated. So I think this goes certainly for automated emails as well as any emails right now. Mistakes are going to happen. Do your best to plan and prevent them, as well as to mitigate any kind of big risks. But anyone knows that automated emails, they're inevitably going to create some issues. So what we're advising is going ahead and getting ahead of those and really trying to prevent any of the ones that can have brand snafus as a result.
Definitely. It's never a bad idea just to put a, monthly, quarterly, yearly check for automated emails just to make sure that they aren't, talking about a Halloween celebration in February. So that's a really good piece of advice too. And speaking of advice, next we can talk about our lessons and advice that we have here. So I think the first thing that we want to talk through are our do's and don'ts of email marketing. And so, have empathy with your campaigns. We saw some really good examples of that look like they're from a person. Someone thought, what need can I help answer here? And you're being sympathetic and empathetic to what everyone's going through right now. thinking about what automations are running and what might need to pause altogether. We just talked a lot about that. Lean on your team members and partners. Don't feel like you have to make decisions about automations in a funnel. Don't feel like you have to change everything on a whim because one person said to. Definitely create a stakeholder kind of cohort that everyone can kind of work together and make group decisions that are smart versus reactionary. Segmenting to be more relevant is really important here too. You know, as things kind of begin to open up, you might need to send a targeted message to certain audiences and certain demographics, but not to others, and geolocations. So be sure that you're not sending everyone the same message if it's not relevant to them. And then, you know, call out anything special that you're doing, you know, waiving cancellation fees. I think a lot of the delivery for food apps are waiving their delivery fees. We're seeing a lot of people that are being empathetic for a business to both their customers as well as any sort of partners that they partner with, and making sure that everybody's kind of working together right now.
So let's move over to the don'ts. First of all, we know making payroll, keeping your business a going concern. You can't argue that that's the most important thing, but don't let the bottom line cloud your judgment. Certainly don't take advantage of the situation, and don't make decisions that could have long-term consequences, knowing that we're all going to be able to hopefully fight through this together. Don't turn off your messaging altogether. We know that some brands are probably going to go dark. That has, you know, a lot of complicated evaluations that you need to make, but turning off your messaging altogether can create some issues for your business, for your brand, and we think that a more calculated approach to how you're communicating is more appropriate than just not communicating. Don't use images that are going to certainly be seen as inappropriate or even questionable. That's something that every email marketer dreads, is finding out that the image was maybe incorrect or that didn't have some other folks take a look at it. Right now, the stakes are even higher. So make sure that your images are appropriate given this coronavirus situation. Lastly, don't look or act greedy. I think that goes for everything going on right now. We're certainly going to all have to come together as a country. And I think that as marketers, we know that email is really effective, but now's not the time to be seen as greedy when it comes to your email marketing program or your brand. So lastly, we've got some best practices that we want to share. First, keep your message to the point. Everyone right now is being bombarded with information. We think that email really should say what it needs to say, then let the consumer move on with their life. Next, make sure that you're really thinking through all the different ways that your email could be interpreted. This goes for any kind of brand communication right now. And then perhaps most importantly, the golden rule of email is provide value to the subscriber. Really make sure that right now that you're providing some kind of clear value, whether that's information, whether that's some kind of update about team members, whether it's some kind of special offer to a relevant product that is something that's tied to everyone's life right now that they need. But don't send an email just to send an email. There's certainly, I can think about 50% of the emails that I'm getting right now from different CEOs of companies feel like PR is saying, hey, we need to send an email. There's not really a lot of relevance, and some companies that are sending updates don't really tie into my life to the point that I need a coronavirus update on their business for something that's probably not really relevant. So I think that you've got to really make sure, do I need to send this and is there value? Jess, have you been getting a lot of emails that just seem like maybe they didn't need to be sent?
Yes, I think anyone that I've ever given my email address to has sent me a coronavirus update, and I appreciate the information, but I also don't know if it was really relevant at the time.
Yeah.
I'd be more interested to know if you're open or delivering or anything like that, versus that your warehouse employees are washing their hands, which is a wonderful thing, and I think everyone should do. But maybe, you know, it doesn't need to go to your database.
Absolutely. We'll have some resources that you can link through on the webpage for this webinar that are tied to email, tied to marketing, as well as some health resources to help us all get through this crisis. Lastly, thank you so much for really joining what we wanted to do as a public service announcement for the broader community. We know that a lot of clients and people have asked us what's appropriate from an email marketing standpoint. So Jess and I really wanted to provide some lessons and advice from our viewpoint. So we hope you found this helpful, and thank you for taking the time. Please stay safe.